Here, due to the intensification of Ukrainian operations in the Zaporizhia region, Russian forces focused their attention on this area and even began to provoke clashes to incite Ukrainians to attack. However, in the meantime, the Ukrainians discreetly crossed the Dnipro River and established a 20 kilometers wide bridgehead on the eastern bank, opening the way for their sabotage and reconnaissance groups to facilitate the collapse of the front line by hitting the Russians from behind. On the previous occasion we commented that the Ukrainians improved their tactical position along the entire Orikhiv front, in particular, in front of Kamiansky and east and west of Nastirianka. I also indicated that the Huliopol front became more active because of the increasing number of artillery and aviation attacks and the extensive clearance being carried out in the field areas. The most recent reports suggest that the Russians decided not to wait for the Ukrainians to launch their offensive and launched a series of attacks first. As a result, Russian forces managed to increase their bridgehead in front of Dorozhnyenka and Marfapil. The rapprochement of the positions also allowed the Russians to start attacking Ukrainian positions in the unnamed settlement opposite Marfapil. The main objective of these actions is not to give the Ukrainians enough time to prepare and to force them to prematurely confront the accumulated forces. And Russian sources are reporting significant concentrations of troops, namely up to 10,000 storm men around Huliopol alone. The Russians used exactly the same tactic during Kherson's counteroffensive, when they observed significant concentrations of Ukrainian troops, but did not know where the Ukrainians planned to launch their main attack. They tried to imitate an offensive to precipitate the development of events, but in the end it did not help them. Speaking of the Kherson region, the Ukrainians have increased their bridgehead on the eastern bank of the Dnipro River to the point that many Russian sources began to sound the alarm. Previously, Russian forces continued to occupy and establish observation posts in residential areas of the islands of the Dnipro River Delta. The first clashes for control of the islands began when the Russians attacked the access bridge to Karantini Island. This did not help, as the Ukrainians gradually expelled the Russians from Veliky Potyomkin Island. Soon after, the Ukrainians also took control of the nearest island, with many places to dock. However, the biggest news by far was the presence of Ukrainians in the residential area of one of the largest and most important islands in the region, the so-called Antonivsky Island. Such substantial control over the eastern bank of the river gives a lot of freedom to Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups. This 20 kilometers wide bridgehead is already difficult to control, so if the Ukrainians establish control over the remaining residential areas and approach the mainland, then many Ukrainian sabotage teams will be able to slip and help in the main phase of the counteroffensive operation by destroying strategic targets, railways and critical bridges. Several days ago, the Ukrainians also conducted the third test of their Hrim-2 ballistic missile system. The target was an unspecified element in Kerch. The rocket was shot down, but everyone understands that it is only a test, and that the real attack would be hidden behind a massive attack with drones and missiles. The most important thing is that the Ukrainians established at least 3 positions for the launch of ballistic missiles: Odessa, Kherson and Zaporizhia. The targets of the attacks were also elements in the vicinity of critical land communication lines, such as the Crimean Bridge and crucial railway stations in other cases.